Welcome everyone, I am Adesewa Josh. This is Africa Matters. We begin in South Sudan, which has been hit by the worst flooding in 6 decades, following unprecedented rainfall, leaving hundreds of thousands of people homeless. Turkiye hosts African leaders and representatives of international institutions in Istanbul. And in Zimbabwe, a shortage of foreign banknotes is giving currency to new businesses as they trade with tattered dollar bills. South Sudan is facing another humanitarian crisis as it struggles to recover from a 7-year civil war. The country is being battered by the worst flooding in 6 decades, following 3 consecutive years of heavy rainfall. The UN says more than 835,000 people have lost their homes since May. Though floods aren't unusual in South Sudan during the rainy season, which runs from April to October, scientists say the recent flooding has been exceptional in terms of intensity and duration. The UN regional and local humanitarian agencies are in a race against time to rescue the people and what's left of their livelihoods.
Even as we speak, the water is continuing to rise. And they are saying now that the natural evaporation of the water will take 15 years. So natural evaporation is not an option. We're going to have to find a way of allowing people to return to their lives and connect to livelihoods and be able to return to their places of origin as dignified returnees.
While the humanitarian impact is devastating, wildlife is also being affected. Cheetahs and other predators have moved to higher ground, often into human settlements. Residents try to keep wild animals away, but describe the situation as the survival of the fittest.
Some women leave in the morning to catch fish from the water to sell to get food on the table for their families. They get bitten by snakes and insects that are dangerous to them.
33 counties across South Sudan's 8 states have been impacted by the floods. Jonglei, Unity, and Upper Nile states are worst affected, with farmland and crops destroyed and livestock swept away. Authorities say nearly 90% of Unity State has been inundated, leaving few safe havens for displaced people. The government has approved $10 million in emergency funding to help resettle displaced communities. Scientists predict flooding like this will become more extreme and more frequent in South Sudan if temperatures continue to rise. It's putting pressure on aid agencies already struggling to mobilize resources to people affected by conflict. Without the prospect of planting and harvest in the foreseeable future, many South Sudanese are risking their lives to feed their families. Now let's get the latest from Matthew Hollingworth, the country director for the World Food Programme in South Sudan. He joins me from the capital, Juba. Thanks a lot for making out time. What can you tell us about the situation now?
Clearly, South Sudan is facing now the largest and most problematic flood response that it's ever experienced. We've had 3 years of unprecedented flooding in this country. And this year, because the Sud, the wetlands of this country, have expanded as much as they had from the 2 previous years, the country is now saturated, inundated. Any floods, any water that comes in from the various rivers, the Sobat from Ethiopia, the Baragazal, the Bahr el Nam, the Lol River that moves from west to east, they cause more flooding than usual because they've got nowhere to go. The Sud is full and the Nile is moving too slowly. So now we have 835,000 people affected by flooding this year, and in particular in places like Unity State, in Bentiu, where I was yesterday, the capital of Unity, you're seeing things that you haven't seen since the early 60s or even earlier on in the last century.
The water is trapped, so are the people. What other options are available to get the displaced out of the flooded areas, since natural evaporation would take up to 15 years?
In Bentiu yesterday, was around 200,000 people who are literally trapped in an area because the roads going north, the roads going south and to the southwest are all closed because of the floods. You can take canoes in and out, but that's not going to be able to deal with the numbers of people that we're talking about. Right now, the United Nations agencies, funds and programs, UNMISS, the mission here in South Sudan, the peacekeeping mission, the state government, national organizations are all working literally 18-hour shifts to ensure that the dikes around Bentiu and Rubkona don't break and that people can still be secure in this small area of this state. But for sure, that's an immediate stopgap response. But in the longer term, we've got to find ways that ensure that the water doesn't saturate it and has somewhere to go. The Nile needs dredging. The Nile needs shredding of the hyacinth and the reeds that are stopping the flow of water north. And this is a very significant humanitarian crisis today, but development crisis for the long term if we don't start seeing big investments in trying to mitigate these risks, these climatic risks for the future.
So how realistic is it for people to depend completely on aid? Is it sustainable?
Well, clearly, I mean, South Sudan is a country where the people are some of the most resilient that you'll ever meet in the world. You know, 30 years of civil war and more during their period as part of Sudan after independence in '55, 7 years of war as South Sudan since they became independent from the North in 2011, and a country that has had acute food insecurity, conflicts of every sort, from civil war to and state-level war to now subnational violence across the whole country. And as I say now, 3 years of consecutive flooding that's causing displacement at the levels we've never seen. Sustainability of aid is clearly not there. The world has emergencies in Afghanistan, in Madagascar, in Ethiopia, our neighbor, Sudan, our neighbor. We need to ensure that we look long-term at trying to ensure that South Sudanese people can stand on their own 2 feet, that they can have a prosperous and peaceful future. But that means looking very differently at the way we respond to this crisis and doing it right now.
Matthew Hollingworth, the country director for the World Food Programme in South Sudan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this crisis. Thank you. After nearly 9 years in the region, France has finally handed over its military base in Timbuktu to the Malian army. The European nation has also shut down 2 other bases as part of its planned withdrawal of more than 2,000 troops from the Sahel by early next year. France has handed over the Timbuktu base as the last 150 soldiers pulled out following growing anti-French sentiments in the region. Mohamed Salaha is a freelance journalist, and he explains what their departure could mean to Bamako's fight against terrorism.
When we come to Bamako, where is more than 1,000 kilometers of the field, people are making demonstration. Why? Because they are supporting the transition and because they are member of the CNT. So they do demonstration for themselves to keep their position and to be good with the leaders of the transition. Those people are not from the field and they don't know exactly. People who are calling for the departure, they are not exactly from the field and they don't know the reality of the field. The field really wants French troops to stay and keep securing them. So the departure is a desolation. This visit of Macron is very important because it will permit to the 2 leaders to discuss directly in closed door. And what I think is that Macron will talk directly to Assimi Goïta about some question of interest, which is the departure of French troops, the arrival of Wagner, and the French and Mali collaboration. Because Malian authorities still are accusing France to decide themselves to withdraw the troop without consultation. So this visit is waited by Malian to see what will be happen after, because we know that France wants also to put sanction to Mali as ECOWAS has done. So we think after the visit we will understand clearly what will be happen.
Still ahead on Africa Matters.
Official figures show that more than 23 million Nigerians are jobless. I am Ajek Mangut in Abuja, and I'll explain how Turkish investment in Nigeria is helping to provide employment for some of them.
I'm John Nyashanu, and I'm explaining how dirty and worn-out notes, which are not accepted in normal economies, have actually become big business in Zimbabwe.
The African continent is home to a quarter of the world's 140 million vulnerable children, most of whom face economic and psychological hardships. In Uganda, one NGO is spreading the Turkish culture of giving by providing education for underprivileged young people. Darren Alancheyune reports from Kampala.
Caring is sharing. And for Emre Olgai, the saying has a special meaning. Every day, he works closely with some of Uganda's most underprivileged young people in the slums of Kampala. He has become a father figure for many.
TRT takes care of the orphans in Uganda because back home we have a giving culture. That's why they're practicing this culture. They want to share what they have. Even some people, they share a small portion of their salary to support the orphans. Okay, why orphans? Because our religion and culture encourage us to help the orphans because they need the most, because they are the less privileged people.
Charity like this is a core principle for TRT, a Turkish non-profit organization that is expanding its work across Africa. In the past 7 years, it has helped about 50,000 needy Ugandans. It is currently providing free education and basic support to 50 vulnerable children in the suburbs of Kampala.
Life as an orphan is never easy. They often have no way to meet their basic needs, and most are relegated to living in informal settlements like this.
But this 18-year-old has a bright future.
TRT
has educated me from nursery up to the end of primary school. And it has given my family money, which has been helping us to buy food, clothes, as well as rent for my house. And this has kept us together as a family. If it weren't for them, our family would have been apart.
Through the Turkish government and other organizations, Turkey has offered more than 14,000 scholarships to African students since 1992. These humanitarian efforts are winning over the hearts of people on the continent.
The acceptance of Turkey in Uganda and in Africa is based on that mutual trust, mutual partnership that it has got with the peoples that it is working with. For it wants to develop with you. You move together shoulder to shoulder. As opposed to some, I do not want to mention countries, but I know you are aware of some countries whose mentality is about exploitation, imperialism, which is not the case with Turkey.
Currently, TRT is building a $500,000 orphanage that from next year will accommodate about 200 children. And by offering quality education, the team hopes to transform the lives of those who need it the most. Darren Alancheyune, Africa Matters, Kampala.
We go to Nigeria next, where many Turkish businesses have been venturing into the country in recent years. They're providing jobs for thousands of Nigerians, and Turkey plans to double its trade volume with the West African nation, its biggest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa, as Ajek Mangut reports.
25-year-old Daniel Husseini is a sales representative at Istanbul Turkish Furniture in Abuja. Daniel says he was offered this job after applying to several companies for months.
We are dealing with Turkish product here, so we have to study many things about Turkey. We did not be in Turkey before, but that will give us an enablement to convince our customer to buy our product.
Istanbul Turkish Furniture is one of many Turkish businesses in Nigeria. The company, which was set up a few years ago in Abuja, has about 10 Nigerian employees. It sells household furniture made in Turkey to its customers across Nigeria. More than 40 Turkish businesses operate in Nigeria, providing jobs for over 2,000 Nigerians. Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics says 33% of the country's nearly 70 million labor force are unemployed, so overseas businesses that create jobs are always welcome. But running a business like Istanbul Turkish Furniture in Nigeria comes with its challenges.
We need power to project the beauty of the furniture. And because of lack of power, we buy fuel to fuel our generators, and that increases the cost, and it will also affect the price of our product. We also have challenges of dollar fluctuation. So as the dollar is increasing, also the furniture is increasing, and the customers are complaining.
Nigeria and Turkey have enjoyed trade relations for decades. The country is Turkey's top trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa. Volume between the two countries reached $2 billion last year. Turkey hopes to expand it to $5 billion as soon as possible.
Turkish investments in Nigeria cover sectors including the economy, construction, health and education. But oil and gas accounts for the majority of Turkish imports from Nigeria. Paul Alaji is an economist and financial analyst. He says Nigeria needs to position itself further to attract more investments from Ankara.
Power infrastructure and other infrastructure, namely rail, namely road, namely education, health, all of these things are what government of Nigeria must put in place so that the bilateral relationship we are looking at with Turkey will be strengthened and it will be mutually beneficial. It will not be one-sided.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari in October and signed agreements in key sectors like energy, defense, mining and hydrocarbons. Both leaders agreed that implementation would begin immediately. The hope is that this will further strengthen ties between the two countries and provide more jobs for people like Daniel. Ajek Mangut, Africa Matters, Abuja.
Zimbabwe's economy has been badly hit by soaring inflation and a floundering currency that's falling nearly 30% this year. That's forced many residents to turn to the US dollar for more stability. But with a shortage of the foreign banknotes, even worn-out bills are becoming big business. John Yashana reports.
25-year-old Byron Katsande works hard to survive. Unfortunately, his work happens to be illegal. He buys worn-out US dollar notes that will be rejected in normal stores at half price. Then he uses a special type of glue to mend the bills and resell them at a profit. He believes he's providing a service to people in need.
I don't see anything illegal in what we are doing because we are encouraging people not to throw away dirty and tattered notes. At the same time, it's helping some of us earn an honest living.
And the capital Harare is now full of other traders like Byron. At nearly every street corner, the business is money. People blame the government for mismanaging the economy and creating cash shortages. But authorities say these currency changes are making it worse by driving down the value of the official Zimbabwean dollar. They announced a crackdown in September and are calling for stiffer penalties.
We arrested a total of 91 forex dealers, not only in Harare, but all over the country. And we are engaging the judiciary to ensure that some of these laws they are tightened.
Economists say police are unlikely to win the fight against illegal dealers since they are heavily used by the informal sector, which makes up 70% of the country's economy.
If I was in a trader situation, I had currency come through my business which was not of a decent standard, I would sell it to my bank. My bank would give me new notes. But in the informal sector, that is not possible.
And it's not necessarily easier to access cash through normal banks. The acute shortage of US dollars has triggered scenes like these. The result is an increase in the number of illegal money changers who conduct their business in spite of the risk of jail time and running battles with the police. The Zimbabwean dollar is currently pegged at 105 against the US dollar. But that rate becomes much steeper on the black market and electronic exchanges, with experts predicting it could fall further soon. And more economic uncertainty means more demand for illegal dealers to keep the money flowing. John Yashanu, Africa Matters, Harare.
You're watching Africa Matters, and here's a roundup of other stories making news across the continent. The third Turkiye Africa Partnership Summit is taking place in Istanbul on Friday. The event brings together senior government officials from 39 countries. Delegates are outlining a 5-year plan for cooperation in various sectors, including security, trade, investment, healthcare, and education. Ankara says the summit is the beginning of a new phase of Turkish relations with African countries. South Africa's High Court has ordered former President Jacob Zuma to return to jail. He was granted medical parole in September while serving a 15-month sentence for refusing to participate in a corruption inquiry. Zuma is facing dozens of charges, including racketeering and money laundering in relation to an arms deal during his tenure. He denies all allegations. Lawyers filed an appeal within hours of the ruling. The prison department says it's also planning to appeal the judgment. UNESCO has added Congolese Rumba dance to its cultural heritage list. Music fans in both the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Republic of Congo have welcomed the announcement. The origins of Rumba can be traced back to the ancient Central African Kingdom of Congo. And Congolese Rumba has now joined Cuban Rumba and Jamaica's reggae music on the UNESCO list. According to the WHO, more than 4 million people die each year from pollution-related causes. In Rwanda, air quality levels are 4 times higher than what is considered safe. But several companies are on the front lines of the fight to curb carbon dioxide emissions and offer a greener, cheaper driving experience. Osman Aliyuba has the story.
Motorcycle taxis like these are one of the most common forms of public transport in Rwanda. Evode Niyorurema is a motorcycle taxi driver in the capital, Kigali. He used to shuttle people through the streets with a motorcycle that ran on gas. But all that changed when he put down his fuel pump and picked up a battery.
The reason I switched to an electric motorbike is that I wanted to avoid fuel costs, which are always rising, and also the costs of going to the garage all the time. With an electric motorbike, I don't have to make as many trips to the garage.
Niyorurema is part of an initiative funded by the Rwandan government and the United Nations Development Program. In July, the government waived import taxes on electric and hybrid vehicles and the equipment used by charging stations in an effort to phase out fuel-based transport. One of the companies leading this switch is Rwanda Electric Motors. CEO Donald Kabanda says a single electric battery charge can cover up to 60 kilometers compared to 35 kilometers for a liter of petrol.
If you use electricity, it is locally generated. And we are using electricity that is generated in Rwanda instead of using the petrol that is being imported from outside.
While passengers and drivers seem happy to go electric, one major stumbling block remains.
The only problem they find is that the distance they cover is relatively small because of unavailability of electricity.
Despite the lack of extensive charging networks, Rwandan drivers continue to revamp their rides.
So far we have retrofitted 80 bikes, and we have new pure electric around 200 bikes already in operation.
And they hope to accelerate the government's ambitious plan to drive down emissions by 16% in 9 years and double that by 2040. Usman Aliyu Uba, Africa Matters.
To Central Africa now, where this week we'll explore Kolwezi City in the DRC. The country mines about 2/3 of the world's cobalt, an essential ingredient in lithium-ion batteries. And cobalt from Kolwezi is powering everything from mobile phones to electric cars. That's our show this week. We would like to send our solidarity to everyone affected by floods in South Sudan. You can also send your messages using the hashtag #PrayForSouthSudan across all our social media platforms. Please continue to share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories we've brought you and what you would like us to cover using the hashtag #AfricaMatters on Twitter. Please feel free to also reach out to me on my personal handle @Adesewa Josh. You can also watch Africa Matters on YouTube wherever, whenever. Enjoy these images from across the continent, and I will see you next week.